Hey, my name is J. Scott Savage, and I am the author of Graysen Foxx and the Treasure of Principal Redbeard, as well as several other middle grade series, including the Far World series, the Case File 13 series, the Mysteries of Cove series, and most recently, the Lost Wonderland Diaries. So, Graysen Foxx and the Treasure of Principal Redbeard is the story of a fifth grade treasure hunter, Graysen Foxx, and his two best friends, these third grade twins, Maya and Jack Delgado, who discover that 20 years earlier, Principal Redbeard took rare Pokemon cards and original Rubik's Cubes and games and toys from kids who had brought them to school, and they never got returned to those kids. So Grayson and his friends come up with a plan to find Principal Redbeard's treasure and return it to the kids who are now adults that it was originally taken from. So the first inspiration for Graysen Foxx was very much, as you can see from the cover, Indiana Jones. I love so many things about Indy, but one of my probably favorites is that Indy is always searching for the treasure for the good of all mankind. He's not looking to sell it. He's not looking to gain power from it. He's not looking to put it in his living room. He wants to share it with all humanity. And so I love that concept. The second concept that sort of combined in my head right away was the old film noir Humphrey Bogart black and white movies. And I really sort of feel like if you actually watch Indiana Jones, there's a lot of that film noir feel to it. So the first element was the adventure part of it. And I think that kids nowadays, and really kids at any point have always needed adventure. Back when I was a kid, we would, go off and build forts and head off in the orchard and explore all these different places. And in some areas of the country, that's still available. But I think that in a lot of ways, kids today don't have quite that freedom. And maybe that's a good thing. I mean, we did a lot of things that we probably shouldn't have. Um, but kids need that adventure. And that's why they love games like Minecraft or Roblox, where they can go and have these adventures. And I think that really good teachers and librarians bring that adventure to them. I know that for me personally, librarians are my superheroes because they brought me that adventure when I needed it, and really the reassurance that I could overcome obstacles with books. And so the first thing that I wanted to do in this story is I wanted to have a really fun adventure that shows kids facing obstacles, facing some really major hardships, and figuring out how to overcome them in this Indiana Jones environment. Now, the second thing I wanted is I wanted this film noir feel. And one of the things about film noir is that typically you have this detective who starts down this case and things quickly begin to expand or kind of unravel out of their control. And they have to figure out how to cope with that. And I think that especially kids today who have dealt with COVID, they've dealt with lots of changes in their lives, trying to readapt from online school to in-person school. I think a lot of them feel sort of this out of control. As a kid, I was not diagnosed, but I have ADHD. And again, I had some teachers and librarians who really sort of recognized how I learned and how I processed things and were really great to work with. I also, though, had teachers who really didn't get it. I would hear all the time, "You're so smart if you would just apply yourself." I had a sixth grade teacher who I know was really well meaning, but he called me up in front of the class and said, "You remind me of a boy sitting behind the wheel of a steam shovel, and he's fast asleep in the steam shovel, and there's another boy with a hand shovel who's digging a bigger hole." And I wasn't trying to be like argumentative, but I said, well, maybe the boy in the steam shovel doesn't want to dig a hole. And for me, I felt like that a lot of times, like, God, I want to explore and I want to learn. Um, and there was only sort of one path that I could go through. And so with Grayson, as he starts to discover this treasure and what's happening, pretty soon he starts to hear like all of the rumors and ideas and thoughts of other kids, and is this treasure real, and where did it go? And my favorite thing is that he goes to the library, and he talks to the librarian. He wants to get the real facts. And my librarian is basically, if you imagine elementary school as this sort of seedy Humphrey Bogart bar, okay? So my librarian is behind the bar, slinging books down to everybody, you know? So she comes in and he's like, yeah, you want a Diary of a Wimpy Kid in a dirty cover. And then she laughs and goes, none of my books have dirty covers. And so she knows what all of the kids want. And Graysen comes to her and says, hey, I'm trying to find out if Principal Redbeard was real and if his treasure was real. And she sends him to the Oracle, who happens to be in the reference section of the library. So I really think that it has that fun film noir feel to it, which is what I was looking for. Now, any middle grade book, I think, has to have a lot of really fun humor in some way. And humor can come from a bunch of different areas. But for me, what I was looking for was sort of discovering, again, how kids view elementary school. So when you go into an elementary school, again, we see it as being fairly controlled. You know, the halls go here and everything. But in that school, every single grade has their own kind of inside jokes, their hangout areas. They're sort of on their own language and mythology there, you know, where they've talked about, do you remember the kid who kicked the kickball home run that went up on the roof of the school? Or I heard that one time a guinea pig escaped from the second grade classroom and got into a field, and now there's a whole herd of guinea pigs out there. And so I've got these different characters. You've got the doodler, who is the boss of the venerable but quick-tempered order of sixth graders. And he kind of rules his domain from a spare closet where he has doodled all these really bad drawings. And he's out there drinking his juice boxes and going, you know, I could have been something if I'd won the third grade spelling bee. So that's a lot of fun. You've got the trader who's on the corner trading Pokemon cards and you know, candy and things in lunch and stuff. Because I think, again, as kids, we were always trading. In our time, it was marbles. Now it's like Pokemon cards and you know, snacks. Hey, do you want this sandwich for that and whatever? And so you've got these really fun characters. You've got the janitor with the scary three-legged hairless cat. You've got the principal, who most of the kids who are terrified with, who we actually learn is a really great principal. You've got the librarian, you've got the oracle. So all of these different characters, and all of them play in to these little jokes. And I really wanted this feel where adults reading it, hopefully, are going to laugh and enjoy it. And kids can also sort of see those things themselves. So we get that sort of two-layered humor. And I think, again, that mythology and history of a school and how everyone interacts and communicates, that builds right in again to this whole, what I call middle grade noir, Indiana Jones feel, you know, that okay, so a long time ago, starts with him searching for the legendary laminated hall pass, which lets you go anywhere in the school. And he's searching for them in these old metal desks that used to be in the school, but now they've been piled up in the basement, that is called Desk Mountain. And he goes among the maze of death. That's all these old books that have been piled up there. So you get a lot of the new stuff. Hey, now we have cubbies and tables and whiteboards, and projectors, but we also get sort of the old stuff of what was taking place there. Um, then sort of once I kind of get that, I'm like, okay, we've got this adventure, we've got this treasure the kids are going to search for. To me, I don't want to hit the kids over the head with a message. Like, that's just, I don't think anybody wants that, kids or adults. What we want is a great story that we can then take something from. One of the things that I've studied a lot is the effects of stories on our brains. When we deal with an obstacle, whether we're adults or kids, there is a certain chemical that is released from our brains that makes us kind of gear up and be stressed for overcoming this obstacle. Well, when we achieve that, when we overcome the obstacle, when we accomplish the goal, there's another set of chemicals that are released. And one of the amazing things about books is that books are kind of like life simulators, where when kids read them and they see other kids overcoming these obstacles, it teaches their brains that, hey, they can do the same thing. They can also overcome these obstacles. And so I want to make sure that while they're laughing and having this adventure and this good time and figuring out these puzzles and riddles and clues, that there also is a message for them. And I think there are a couple of key messages in this story. One is the loyalty of friends. So you've got Graysen and Jack and Maya, who are two twins. And um, Jack is really fast. They call him the ghost because he can escape from any classroom without anyone noticing. He's really crafty and everything, but he's very shy. So when he talks, unless it's in the dark where no one can see him, he whispers to his sister Maya, and then Maya translates what he says. And those two are super loyal to each other and to Graysen. And so as Graysen and Jack and Maya are going through the story, there's some decisions they have to make because their arch enemy is Raven Ransom. And Raven wants to find the treasure and keep it for herself. In the Indiana Jones mythology, she would be sort of like the Belloc who wants to get it, and get money from it and everything, except she just wants to be able to have it. She wants to have all the toys and stuff. And later on, again, the two of them end up discovering that there is really a greater enemy that they will have to face. But she is basically telling Graysen, look it, you need to put the treasure first. You need to put yourself first. But because she knows that that's not the kind of person that Graysen is, Raven creates emergencies in the school. She sends a first grader who's trying to bring donuts to their class party into the middle of a group of hungry sixth graders right before lunch to try to create this kind of panic and stuff and set Graysen off course. She brings brand new books that are from super popular series that haven't been checked into the library computer yet and spreads them around the library so that kids start fighting over them because they're really popular books and there's no, checkout list yet. So Graysen and his friends have to decide, are they going to focus their talents and their efforts strictly on finding the treasure, or are they going to let themselves be distracted by helping the other kids who are there? And I really love the way that Graysen and Jack and Maya stick by each other. Even there's times when Maya goes, Graysen, I think you're I think you're too generous. I think you need to focus on the treasure. But when Graysen goes, no, that's not who I am. She's like, okay, I've got your back. So I really love that friendship. And I love that it's not two fifth graders, that it's the third graders and the fifth grader working together, because I think that makes a really fun dynamic, again, of how kids feel to school. Grayson's kind of the world weary, fifth grade changes a kid, or most kids never notice the mysterious underbelly of the world we call public education. And Jack and Maya are sort of the more kind of innocent, that third grade is just a fun time where stuff, but everything still feels magical and new, which is one of my favorite parts about middle grade writing. So that's the first one. The second one is that Graysen faces, and I think kids do as well, two kinds of bullies. Now, bullying is sort of a trope in middle grade, and I think that at times it can be overdone. But I wanted to introduce two types of bullies here. So you've got a point where Graysen says, there are bullies who come and punch you in the stomach right in front of your face. And those are the bullies that we're more familiar with. They're right there. They're tough. And in this case, that would be the doodler and the doodler's henchmen and women. um, but then you've also got the kind of bullies who try to talk kids into doing things that they know are wrong. And Graysen says, I would much rather get punched in the stomach to my face than have somebody stab me in my back. And what he's basically saying is, um, I'd rather face bullying head on and see it coming than have someone pretend to be my friend and actually convince me to do things that I know I shouldn't be doing. And so I feel like those are really two life lessons. And ultimately, we get this very fun moment toward the end of the book where Raven and Grayson are face off with each other trying to get the treasure, and another person comes in, and it's the ultimate bully, and it's not the school principal who we all thought it was going to be, but it's someone else there who has all along been orchestrating this. And Grayson and Raven really kind of open up to each other, and Raven says, I always try to take your treasure because you're so good and you always know where it is, and the only way I can feel better about myself is to come in and take it away from you. And Grayson goes, but you're so much smarter and more clever than me, and you figure all these things out, and I almost didn't even try to find this treasure because you always end up with it anyway. And the two of them work together, which was a really fun moment in the story for me. um, and then I think history really sort of plays such a big role here. Grayson, again, kind of like Indiana Jones, he's a treasure hunter, but he's also an archaeologist. And he talks a lot about what to him, like there's this in this book, he opens up this book and he sees this hieroglyphics written in it. And it's this really curvy, spirally writing, and it ends up being cursive. Um, and he sees a library card catalog and a library stamp and a ditto machine. So a lot of things that to him are ancient history, but because he studied them, he sort of knows what they are. And I think that to kids, we look back and we say, oh, well, a historical novel is 100 years ago or 200 years ago or 1,000 years ago. To kids, something 10 years ago is historical. And so it's really kind of fun to see one, parents going, oh yeah, that's all my stuff that they're viewing as historical now. So seeing kids and also to see how things carry over. So back then they had Rubik's cubes, they had Pokemon cards, they had all these all of these things that were popular 20 years ago, but now are back. Kids are bringing Rubik's cubes to school. They're trading Pokemon cards. So it's really fun to see sort of history repeating itself and seeing the importance of learning from history. And Grayson talks a lot about that, about um, how history changes, but how it affects so much the things that we do now. So we've got this school that's been around for a long time. We've got the rumors and was this principal there? And then we've got Grayson sort of digging down and excavating in the history of the school itself. Um, as part of all that, one of the things that I did that I hope people will like, I thought it was fun. Um, I have watched a lot of the old black and white movies and read a lot of the books, you know, all of the film noir novels and everything. And I loved how much they use similes and metaphors. So I wanted to do that as well. I wanted to get a lot of these Grayson coming in and talking, he's like, you know, I was as stuck as the last ice cream bar in the back of the freezer in the cafeteria, Um, and so what I wanted to do is I wanted to take those similes and metaphors and tie them to his world. Okay. How does our our middle grade noir Indiana Jones fifth grade treasure hunter from his life in this school and as a kid, what are the metaphors that he uses in the similes? And I think that's a really fun thing in a read aloud because um, that's something that teachers and librarians can point out and have kids recognize the similes and metaphors that they use all the time and how those similes and metaphors change um, really from generation to generation, from one location to another, on a job site, let's say at a construction site, as opposed to maybe being a fisherman or something. So anyhow, I hope you'll like it. There are e-arcs available that you can download from Shadow Mountain, and I'd love to hear from you. My wife Jen and I travel across the country. We visit schools. It's so great having kids talk about how stories have inspired them in different ways, how they've helped them recognize that their differences are a good thing, how to deal with bullying and things like that. Um, that's just as an author that makes your heart pitter patter. So thank you so much.